There's something in the early days of home computer gaming which has always made it stand out for me, and that's seeing the sparks of uniqueness amongst games which took on ideas from the arcades, bringing them home. I feel it was always a neat way for a developer to experiment with the craft, and while it would lead to greater things for some, for others, they might not have had the career, but there were still some interesting gems released along the way. Like Crystals of Zong, also known as The Mummy's Tomb for its US release, which saw release in PAL regions in 1983 on the Commodore 64. Now, is that Crystals of Zong or Crystals of Zong? It's something I love about these more heady days of game development. Days when brand guidelines weren't a thing, so what you saw on the cover wasn't quite what you saw in game. Anyway, there's not really a story with this one. You're just some adventurer trying to collect the treasures in each level and then find the exit to move to the next. Levels are made up of 9 screens arranged in a grid, and within each room, you'll find an item locked behind a pair of gates, a key, and a sword. Keys are color-coded, unlocking the gates of their matching route, which is obviously color-coded. Once you enter the room, they'll flash, meaning you can get in them by walking up and holding fire as you walk into them. They'll let you cross into the region and you can get that sweet, sweet treasure. Sword is your only weapon, which, when collected, lets you take out enemies Pac-Man style for a short period of time, providing you stay in the room, as if you exit and move into a new one, the sword's effect is cancelled and you have to find a new one to take on the enemies there. Also worth noting, enemies do respawn if you re-enter a room, but the sword does not, so it's wise sometimes to ignore it, especially if you're going to plan on returning to a room. Obviously, the real trick is learning what you need to prioritize collecting, as though the game does kind of imply you have to collect everything before seeking the exit, you actually don't. Sure, those collected treasures will give you plenty of points, but they're not required to move on. You might also think you have to act quickly because of the torch time gauge slowly dwindling down. But your penalty for running out of time is just that the enemies become harder to see. Torch pickups do reset the timer, and one of the treasures is a lamp that gives you unlimited time for the rest of the stage. As for what else you'll find, well, there are treasures like the crown and a treasure chest. Great for boosting your score and nothing really else beyond that. There's also a sword, but it just gives you, it's like collecting a second one in the same room. There are a couple of cool pickups though. Green potions grant you a short burst of invulnerability. But again, it only applies in the current room you're in, just like the swords. Exit the room, and the effect is gone. The brown potions though, they're surprisingly useful, giving you a one-off teleport. You press F1 to cycle which room is your destination, then hit F7 and you're instantly there. I never use this one much, but when you're a few levels in, it honestly really has its place there. And that's because the enemies in Crystals of Zong get nasty real fast. I'm not really surprised by that. Again, Crystals of Zong is wearing its arcade influences on its sleeve here, so enemies aren't really a pushover, and they get deadlier as you progress as a result. Especially when you get to level 4 with the mummies. Because they'll throw rocks at you, which can really mess up your day if you're not careful. And truth be told, this is kind of where the game is at its weakest for me. When you look to arcade games, especially like Pac-Man, and one of the things that truly defines Pac-Man is the ghost AI. It's been documented in so many places. You know, how to beat the ghosts, because the ghosts have behaviors that can be learned and studied and worked against. So leading them around the map so you can evade them is one of the best parts of mastering that game. But in Crystals of Zong, the enemies pretty much just wander about at random. And I found that means you truly need to keep your distance if you're going to survive. Because getting close to them will mean certain death when they decide to randomly turn a direction into you. It also doesn't help that both you and them have pretty big sprites for collision purposes. But death's bigger penalty is the annoying sequence which plays out as you watch an angel descend, recover your corpse, and fly away before your new life appears. all while a little take on Amazing Grace is playing in the background. Considering how easy it can be to get killed, you're gonna hear it a lot. And trust me, kinda gets real old, real fast. There are plenty of other jingles which play when collecting other treasures and items, but they don't play as long, you don't hear them as often, they weren't as grating to my ears. That might just be me. Crystals of Zong really reinforces the arcade vibe with how its levels and enemies are set up. There are 4 enemy types you'll encounter, each level introduces a new one, and those culminate in the mummies I talked about earlier. After clearing that 4th stage, you go back to level 1 with the snakes, but now they move at a much faster pace than before. And that's really where the last pickup item, the boots, truly take their place as the prime treasure to get, as the boost to your movement speed they give you is essential at this point. They're handy early on, but here you really need them to survive because the enemies are so much faster. All of them. Which means if you get to level 8 with the mummies second round, they're even worse. All of this gave me this feeling that if you're going to try and get all the treasures before moving on, it's really sort of a game of attrition. Early on, I really found that to really make progress and be able to play those later levels, you've got to just give up going for all the treasures and just find the key to the exit as early as possible. Sure, you're going to miss out on the points. You're not going to get the highest score, even though it doesn't say there's only one entry, but you've got to do that so that you can save your lives for later on, because you can't earn extra lives here. You start with 5 lives and that's it. Unless you're going to go and play a cracked version with a trainer or whatever. That takes a bit of thrill away, but I'm not your parent figure here. You can do whatever you want. But if you are a score chaser, skipping the treasures and just going for the exit kind of takes away the thrill of getting that high score. And that kind of makes Crystals of Zong a little unrewarding in the long term for me. Like, I was really excited to play this one. I stumbled across it years and years ago, had to play, and thought, I really should try and hunt down a copy of it. I'd like to have it, and I'd like to maybe cover it sometime. But as it turns out, the first impressions were kind of exciting. This kind of early arcade maze game looked like it was going to do some interesting stuff. But as I sat down to play it, I couldn't help but shake the feeling. The initial joy of discovery was kind of worn down. As though it does do a few cool things with the maze game formula, treasures and keys and complex, in inverted quotes, level design. I can't help but wish there'd been space for a little more refinement upon the ideas it was playing around with. But that's not much of a surprise when you think of the standards of games in 1983. And despite that, I don't really regret the time I've spent with it or hunting it down. Because exploring older games like this, finding something interesting about them, that is still important to appreciate the progression of the medium. Even if those games just end up being something you're not really going to return to all that often. And I admit that's probably the case here. Not much to say with that really. So as always, if you've been enjoying the show, the biggest thing you can do to help me out is give it a little love. It might not seem like much, but the comments, the shares, some useful discussions in the comments really helps it get picked up and spread to helping find folks who might actually appreciate it. I know it's a slow burn series compared to other things out there, and I'm not the flashiest of presenters, but it's a cool way to explore this stuff, and I'd like to find more people who appreciate this kind of approach to exploring games from the past. But once again, thank you all ever so much for watching.